There is so much going on with this video that is super fun. First, we get a chance to have an early look, which is fantastic. Second, pretty sure the community has been asking Virpil for like 5 years, where are the mid-entry level products, right? Is that something that they're willing to do? So sit back and enjoy the show. Hello, YouTubers. This is noobifier. This is the first time I've ever actually reviewed an April Fool's joke. On April of 2023, Virpil posted a picture that I initially laughed at, and then later that day, I actually contacted them and said, you know that joke that you posted today? How hard would it actually be to make that? Because there's definitely a market for it. I must not have been the only one, because here we are witnessing a new release. If you're very new to Sim, you may not have heard of Virpil. They're now based out of Lithuania, and since 2015, they've been releasing flight controls targeting the upper price and quality segment of the market. Because I aim for brevity, if you need more info, please feel free to search for noobifier Virpil to see what I'm talking about. Virpil throttles and panels have shared the same basic frame, mounting, and are all built to a very high standard, but they're not what I would call cheap. The CM3 throttle incorporates numerous bindings that could be on a separate panel, and these backlit buttons, dials, and switches obviously raise the cost to produce. Quality comes with a cost, and that might cause people to click off of the Virpil store and start looking at something else. The Cadet VMAX throttle aims to address this with what seems to be a more budget-aligned product without sacrificing or compromising what I'm used to seeing from Virpil. I'm happy to report near the very start of the video that despite the lower cost price point, I actually see no changes in construction. The cost savings are simply the result of cutting down the number of bindings, and you can therefore see this as Virpil's new take on a no bullshit product. The Cadet lineup has a blue badge and a focus on a lowered price point. There have not been any other products actually confirmed, but I imagine to see at least a smaller size panel, about the same size as this throttle, and perhaps a cut down Warbird D gimbal that may have the drag clutches deleted to hit a lower price point. That's not confirmed, that's just an example. The new throttle has 23 bindings, and they're laid out in a new layout, with the most noticeable that the dual analog joystick is now mounted to your thumb. The bindings are as follows. Binding 1 is click on the axis drum leftmost side, 2 is the gray top pinky momentary, 3 is actually a momentary that's active when the throttle interlock is active. So splitting to independent controls of both throttles disables binding 3 and turns it off. Binding 4 is the black with circle momentary button that's operated by your FU finger. 5 to 9 is the 4-way rocker with push that's operated by your left index finger. You can push in for 5 and activate another button, another direction at the same time. 10 is push down on the top axis drum. 11 to 15 is a 4-way with push on your thumb. 16 is push in thumb dual analog. 17 is black with circle thumb momentary. 18 is the gray low mounted thumb momentary. 19 to 23 is the low thumb mounted 4-way with push. There are 7 analog axes. 1 and 2 are the left and right throttle. 3 is the flap lever. 4 is the left-mounted drum with middle detent, 5 is the top-mounted drum with the middle detent, and 6 and 7 are the X and Y of the thumb-mounted mini-stick. I'll get back on track by saying the $217 USD is the current release price, and you get a lot where it counts the most. An all-metal base and all-metal internals, also including an adjustable mounting base plate, bearings anywhere that something moves, adjustable tactile detents, a dual throttle quadrant that each have their own full-size friction clutch to tune resistance, an adjustable analog flap lever, which also has a full-size friction clutch to tune the resistance. All 3 of these are adjustable from the top with an included tool, which is super convenient. A programmable warning light, that's RGB. You can set it in the software to do a bunch of stuff. Injection molded ABS grip handle with an inlay of rubber for extra traction, and the same quality clicky buttons, hats, Joy-Cons, and encoders that you get on the original series. Taking a look inside is where I became the most impressed. The build and design seem to have actually been executed in many ways a little bit better than the current CM3. All electrical connections are performed through double plug terminated wires or daughter boards that are connected directly to each other. All boards are held in place with standoffs and screws. The sensors are protected behind a billet aluminum support that further reinforces the structure of the base. And this is probably the new standard that we're going to start to see from Virpil, and what I might expect to see if there's a need for a CM4 version of their full-size throttle. From an engineering standpoint, credit where credit is due, even used very harshly daily for years, it's likely that the end user will never suffer a mechanical failure. So, what are the negatives and what are some advantages and who is this for. The negatives are fairly obvious in that there are no buttons anywhere on the base. Buttons on the base usually require the pilot to break grip, which is fine normally on a throttle for a second or two. If you're an advanced user, there's no mode switch on the VMAX, but for the intended target, none of these should actually be a cause for concern. The advantages are price, small size, and therefore flexibility. With this launch, there's also a new set of table rails. Very good news is that this will also work on the CM3 throttle, and then you can get even more creative and mount a pair of panels without the throttle. The smaller footprint might be the difference needed to achieve a perfect ergonomics in tight situations. You retain the auxiliary port, which will allow you to daisy chain two devices onto a single USB port. But unlike the other products, you are not able to remove the 4 bolts on the top and just rotate the ports around to the other side because of how the internal wiring is done. And I feel that that's all I need to say about this new product from Virpil. It's clearly targeted at pushing down the price point closer to the mid-entry without sacrificing the build quality of the entire Virpil ecosystem. Competition like this is always great for the consumer. Virpil has a great new product here, and I hope that we continue to see the Cadet lineup expand into a full ecosystem of slightly less expensive alternatives. Thank you very much for spending your time with me. If you liked the video and got something out of it, I would appreciate if you shared it. As usual, thanks to Virpil for an early look at a new product. There are no promo codes, but links to the product are in the description. I welcome your feedback, fly safe, and I'll see you in the verse.